jet and McDonald's drive-thru. This is the results of people telling the truth about McDonald's on TikTok. He's never seen no McDonald's like this on a Saturday.
Hey, guys, I'm Bryson.
Just said is to with the idea of being able to save taxpayer money, paying down the debt, and potentially giving money back to taxpayers. Final decision made. This is something still under discussion. In the meantime, Republicans up on the Hill cheering this legislation because while Democrats warned that they would risk its public safety, financial future, as well as the future of government agencies overall. Today, the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, expected to issue a number of pink slips.
I don't know about you, but I don't give a fuck about what the Democrats say.
Upwards of 6,000 people expect to be cut, and it comes.
We're at 35.
This is tax season is underway. The president also issued a saying cutting.
We're at $36 trillion in debt. I don't want to hear shit that the Democrats got to say. They lost. Shut the fuck up.
Spending on to help migrants who are now in Mexico.
Continue to waste American taxpayer dollars on giving it to illegal immigrants, as the president has announced, and taking money from Americans, spending it frivolously, and then not being accountable for where that money has gone.
The Department of Housing and Urban Development says it's making cuts too. The Secretary says it's time to show the government this is not.
I want to know when we're going to demand that the Democrat rats, a lot of them, be fired. We can never trust these people after what they did dealing with these migrants coming over here illegally, giving them all our tax money when they was breaking the fucking law, but they wasn't doing shit. It's time to demand that these assholes be fired. Everybody that has something to do with these migrants coming over here illegally needs to be fired immediately.
Services. Democrats warning that this could have impacts from some category says without sufficient staff for these programs, community and economic development projects, disaster recovery efforts, and housing across the country will be delayed and could come to a grinding halt. EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin says he's on a mission to track down billions of dollars that were either misspent or parked in the council mentors. Activists, their latest focus is on the non-profit ties to water. And Stacey Abrams, the Free Beacon, says the EPA is looking where some $2 billion ended up. The Beacon writing out
$2 billion we can't find.
Looking into whether or not this money through the Powered Ford Communities received the Green Energy Grant, despite the fact that it was founded months earlier in late 2023 and never managed anywhere near the grant's dollar figure. Now, Abrams just this week was pretty vocal on X, saying she's no fan of these Doge cuts. We'll look to see if this group responds to the accusation about the money being misspent. And we're also looking to see if the president talks about what it's been like as he marks 1 month in office today.
Bill, okay, good deal, Mark. Thanks. The plate is full, and it's 9 a.m. Nice to see you, sir.
And Senator James Lankford, Republican of Oklahoma, joins us now. I just want to ask you something. On that money that went to Stacey Abrams' group, it was supposedly misspent. That's what the accusation is. Can Congress claw that money back?
That becomes a challenge. You tell me if we can get enough Democrats to be able to join us in the Senate to be able to do that. The president can do that, though, with the oversight that's actually happening, and to say, how are we going to actually make sure that this is actually done? The Department of Justice can say if there's fraudulently done. They can actually work to claw it back. It is interesting to me to be able to watch early days of the Biden administration. They were creating DEI programs. He was requiring all agencies to find Green New Deal ways to be able to engage, and he was cutting off oil and gas production on all federal lands. Flip the script 4 years later, we're cutting government size and we're opening up American energy. Dramatic difference between side by side and first model.
Okay, so Elon Musk is the lead blocker on this play. Here he was with Sean last night on solving the deficit impossible.
I really want to emphasize to people that it's a very important point. If we don't solve the deficit, if there won't be money for medical care, there won't be money for Social Security, or even solve the deficit, all we'll be doing is paying debt. Nobody's it's got to be solved.
This area is for
Social
employees
Security
only.
or nothing. It's got to be solved. It's not optional. America will go bankrupt if this is not done. That's why I'm here.
I want you to react to that, and this is the breakdown of the money that we're hearing. Okay, they're saying $2 trillion. I don't know where they get the number. Others say $1 trillion, but we'll see how it plays out. And then you give $400 billion back to the taxpayer, which equals $5,000 per household. Now, if you're trying to save money, does all that add up for you?
My first priority is actually getting the debt down. Everyone wants 3 checks in the mail. There's no doubt about that. But we've got to be able to solve the debt and the deficit issues on that. Elon is correct in that we are going to continue to have high inflation and not be able to spend on the things that are critical for us: infrastructure, healthcare, education, national defense. If we actually continue to run this debt, and as people talk about power around the world on this, China continues to be able to influence other countries where we are not able to engage in some of those areas on even foreign policy, be strategic about it, because we're dealing with that deficit. Right now, we have to borrow money from China to be able to pay our own bills. That is a weak nation's future, not a strong nation's future. Let's fix that.
One of the things that you've done is come up with Senator Lankford's top 5 federal fumbles. We can put them up here for everybody to see. Tell me a little bit more about it, because I was feeling this has a lot to do with sports references, and I'm not sure I can follow appropriately. So let me turn it over to you. I know what a broken playbook is.
Yeah, a broken playbook's pretty simple on this, that you're actually trying to deal with disaster relief and be able to figure out how we're going to solve some of the problems that we have. Right now, if you look at that spaghetti map that's probably up there right now, I can't see it, but if you look at that, there are 30 different agencies that actually oversee disasters. So while President Trump has said we can return control back to the states, if your small community is in a disaster, you have to contact 30 different agencies, have 30 different processes just to do disaster relief because of the complexities of federal government. Everything from the Department of Commerce, Small Business Administration, FEMA, Corps of Engineers, on and on and on and on. That can't be, that is just wasteful on it. Let's have single authority on it, and if at all possible, have it be the states that's a single point of authority that's closest to the actual disaster.
Got it. I like the blown coverage and letting China run up the score. Clever stuff there. One more topic for you. Executive order signed last night by the president saying that illegals will not be eligible for any more federal dollars. Now, Bill Clinton tried to run this play in the late 1990s, changing welfare. Is it different now? Will it work? How much will you save?
So there's a couple things there. Your reference to Bill Clinton's a good reference on that. Don't forget, Bill Clinton, during his administration, reduced the federal workforce about 250,000 people. So everybody's screaming about President Trump reducing federal workforce. They weren't screaming when Bill Clinton did this decades ago, wanting to reduce federal workforce as well. Same issues here. We're going to get benefits. Those benefits need to go to people legally present here and American citizens, not people illegally present. I don't see a long line of people saying, I really want my tax dollars to go to someone who broke our law and illegally came into the country, rather than going to schools, national defense, and transportation. People want their tax dollars to go to what they expect them to go to, not what they actually oppose or violation of our own law.
And the polling coming back just in this last month shows that that is absolutely what they still believe. We'll see if the Democrats try to defend this and how that turns out. Great to have you on. Thanks for being on.
Thanks, Senator. Good luck with the
See you.
See how it goes. Yeah, you as well.
The truth matters, don't you think? If you think.
Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, facing a number of legal battles, most of which are coming from Democrats up in arms about DOGE decluttering the federal government. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt will join us, as promised, to react.
Why we are not putting a petition together to get rid of these Democrat rats?
The pushback against DOGE. But first, senior White House correspondent Peter Doocy's live on the North Lawn. Peter, how much have taxpayers saved because of all this work on the part of DOGE?
So far, in the neighborhood of $50 billion, Sandra, and officials here are claiming that things are about to get much bigger if they can make some major changes, because they are saying that the first look at the Treasury Department has revealed that $4.7 trillion worth of payments at Treasury went out the door without a Treasury account symbol, which is similar to a billing code. And that means that $4.7 trillion is basically untraceable.
You're looking at somehow some of these bureaucrats from D.C. that have never left, but then
That's $5 trillion that's unaccounted for.
make hundreds of thousands of dollars and are somehow worth tens of millions of dollars, close to $100 million in certain circumstances. Do we believe that there's a chance that they could be funneling these to NGOs with interest? Yes, we know that happens.
Elon Musk posted about allegations of Social Security fraud. My rough estimate is that it's 80% lack of confidence / caring and 20% fraud, but that's still a lot of fraud. There are Democrats, though, countering the fraud is actually by billionaires at the White House trying to help billionaire friends.
Corruption's up, chaos is up, and yes, prices are up for Americans. And that's why we are standing up against this effort to basically put their tax cuts for billionaires on the backs of working people, whether it's Social Security,
All these bitches need to be fired.
drugs, whether it is housing or child care.
We're $36 trillion in debt. All these assholes.
The Social Security Administration is leaving.
All these assholes should be fired dealing with the Democrat rats.
After a disagreement with DOGE, engineers on access to sensitive taxpayer information. She had been the acting SSA administrator since January 21st, one day into Trump's term. Sandra.
All right, Peter Doocy live at the White House for us. Peter, thank you. John.
For more on DOGE's work so far, let's bring in Caroline Leavitt, White House Press Secretary. Caroline, great to spend the afternoon with you. Appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me, John. Great to see you.
So the Democrats, as we know, got their hair on fire complaining about DOGE and cost cutting. But if we go back in history, Barack Obama announced something very similar back in 2011. And then if you go all the way back to 1993, remember when Al Gore and Bill Clinton said this.
This book right here, if you are making commissions...
Man, shut the fuck up, man. That's why I don't like these commercials. They're a bunch of bullshit.
Remember when Al Gore and Bill Clinton said this. This report tells us how to cut waste, cut red tape, streamline the bureaucracy, change procurement rules, change the personnel rules, and create a government that works better and costs less. The Reinventing Government, or RIGO report, aims to save $180 billion over 5 years through eliminating scores of wasteful programs and regulations. Among the 800 recommendations, eliminating 12% of the federal workforce, merging some government agencies like the FBI, the DEA, and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, closing hundreds of government offices outside Washington. I don't remember Democrats complaining about that, and they wanted to cut twice the number of federal jobs that President Trump does.
That's exactly right, John. If you listen to those words, those are from Democrat Party leaders who are allegedly still beloved by Democrat voters today. And they were promising the American people the very same things that President Trump promised the American people, won the election on, and now is actually delivering on. That's the only difference between what President Trump is doing and what these Democrats have promised the American people for decades. He's actually following through on the promise to cut federal government waste, fraud, and abuse. news. And this is the first president to actually do such a thing, and the Democrats are up in arms about it. But our country is going bankrupt, and President Trump is not going to sit back and allow it to happen.
Caroline, can I ask you for a clarification? Sandra here, by the way.
To be honest with you, both parties been robbing us, the taxpayers. Both parties been having a party on us.
Thanks for coming back on with us. It seems there's being a lot made of what Elon Musk's role is actually at Doge. The president has introduced him as the head of Doge multiple times in interviews. Yet there's this affidavit that we've been able to get our hands on here that the press has as well. That it contradicts the White House claim that he's the head of Doge. This affidavit actually says he doesn't work for Doge at all. Reading directly from it, it says Musk is not an employee of the U.S. Doge Service or the U.S. Doge Service Temporary Organization. That's according to the director of the White House's Office of Administration. What is his role at Doge?
Fuck, he's arbitrated.
Elon Musk is a special government employee
No,
here
he
at
is.
the White
No,
House,
special.
serving at the
No.
direction
Yeah, he's
of the
special.
President
Thank
of the United States,
Thank
Donald
you.
Trump.
Special.
Elon Musk has
Elon
been
Musk
tasked
is
with
special.
overseeing Doge on behalf of
Donald
the
Trump to
president.
get the
And Doge
Nobel Peace
employees,
Prize. Donald
folks
Trump
have
for the
been on
Nobel
demand
Peace
with
Prize.
agencies across our federal
Donald
bureaucracy
Trump for
as
the
political
Nobel
appointees,
Peace
just like
Prize.
political appointee
Go
gets on
Trump,
board
go.
with the new administration with the changing of hands, if those individuals are helping the secretaries at all of our agencies that have been nominated and confirmed by President Trump in the United States Senate to cut waste, fraud, and abuse at these respective agencies. So that's the way Doge has been set up, and that's the way it will continue to operate.
Well, let's go back to the plane crash in Toronto that happened yesterday. The fact that Democrats seem to be pointing the finger of blame at the president. I'm not quite sure.
Man,
how you
fuck
make
the
that connection
Democrats.
with the crash occurred in a different country.
They're a bunch
But
of
here's what
fucking
Chuck Schumer
rats.
said. He said, to those asking whether it matters
We
that
need
the
to
plane's
terminate them.
destination was in Canada, the flight took off from Minneapolis. The FAA was still responsible for inspecting the aviation equipment, and Trump just let go of FAA safety specialists. We have no idea what caused this crash. We have some video of it coming in for a hard landing, but we don't know if it was failure of equipment, or if it was weather, or if it was pilot error, or if it was something else. And you can get a minority leader in the Senate immediately pointing fingers at the president. Your response?
It's incredibly irresponsible for Chuck Schumer to say such a thing when the investigation is still underway. And as you
Why
rightfully
Chuck
pointed
Schumer ain't in
out, John,
jail?
this crash unfortunately took place in Canadian airspace with Canadian air traffic controllers overseeing it. And the facts about the FAA are that no air traffic controllers have been let go by Secretary Duffy or this new administration. In fact, Secretary Duffy has put great emphasis on hiring the best and the brightest air traffic controllers who want to be part of the FAA. And President Trump signed a very strong executive order to ensure that the FAA and all federal government agencies are focused on merit and skill-based hiring. We want the best and the brightest, the most competent individuals in positions, especially of public safety at the FAA, the Department of Transportation, and all departments across this federal government, so we can best serve the American people. So while Secretary Buttigieg and the Biden administration sat on their hands when it came to aviation safety for 4 years, this administration is taking it seriously and is actively recruiting the best and the brightest to join this very important field.
Caroline, we know that Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, has been having some critical meetings overseas, Saudi Arabia. We've got Steve Witkoff joining him as well, Mike Waltz. What can you tell us is coming from that? He seems to be putting out some optimism that things may be getting closer to an actual deal being made.
I'm so glad you asked, Sandra, because this is a truly monumental step towards peace in the Russia-Ukraine war. At the direction of President Trump, Secretary Rubio, a special envoy Steve Witkoff, and our national security advisor Mike Waltz spoke to the Russians today and made significant steps towards peace. This is the first step of many. And I'd like to point out that our administration, including President Trump himself, has been in direct correspondence with the Ukrainians as well, including President Zelensky. President Trump also talked to our European allies yesterday. He had a phone call with France's President Emmanuel Macron. Next week, the Prime Minister of the UK will be here at the White House. And so we're ensuring that all parties are heard. But you have to speak to both sides of the war in order to truly negotiate a deal and problem solve. And this is a significant first step towards peace. Again, when the previous administration had no negotiations, no discussions, really no diplomacy in this effort, President Trump and his team are taking significant steps with just being here for 4 weeks.
I want to ask you, if I could, Caroline, about New York City Mayor Eric Adams, who is the subject of a meeting today that Governor Kathy Hochul is having, which a lot of people are reading as whether or not she should remove him from office. A federal judge has just asked the Department of Justice to come into court and explain why the charges against him were dropped. Democrats are suggesting there was a quid pro quo involved here, that in exchange for cooperation on immigration, the DOJ would drop the charges against Eric Adams. He has denied that. What do you say?
Well, I defer you to the Department of Justice for specifics on this case and the ongoing case and the matters against Mayor Eric Adams. What I do know is that Eric Adams has been incredibly courageous in speaking out against his own party when many Democrats refused to do so about the terrible invasion of illegal immigrants that the previous administration allowed to happen, which we know had a grave impact on New York City, on the education system, the transportation system, on taxpayer dollars in that city that were going to housing illegal migrants in hotels. Thankfully, all of that is coming to an end thanks to the strong leadership of President Trump. And New York will only be a sanctuary place for law-abiding American citizens and New Yorkers under this administration. And Mayor Adams has put out a helping hand to try to help
Man,
the
fuck
federal
all this
government in
make-believe
ending border
nonsense.
invasion. He was not heard by the last administration, but he is being heard by this administration because
Nonsense.
President Trump and his team will work with anyone to do what's best for law-abiding,
Nonsense.
tax-paying American
Nonsense.
citizens.
Well, Caroline, we've been carrying your press briefings live here. We look forward to the next one. Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks, guys. All right.
Alina Haba. Alina, great to see you. Thanks so much for being here.
Good morning, Maria. Thank you for having me.
So what about these lawsuits? The administration is facing...
This is a typical lashback in an attempt to stop exactly what the American people mandated, Maria, and that was to prevent government waste, to fight accountability and transparency, which is exactly what President Trump has ordered, and to look at why we're spending so much money on operas in other countries for DEI initiatives, sending condoms to other countries, including Hamas, and castrations, funding castrations. These are the types of things that we're finding. And more importantly, we found, $4.7 billion in a line item where we can't trace the money. Well, we will trace it, but we haven't yet. But it was a line item to disguise and fund USAID things that will probably enriching bureaucrats in this city. And that's a problem. So, of course, they're going to scream and yell. They're going to sue us. And if you look at the record right now, on their track record, frankly, it's not good. They keep trying to stop something that we are allowed to do, which is protect the American people.
Well, it's unbelievable. I was just reading that there have been around 4.6 million credit cards within government, which DOJ identified, but there's only 3 million total federal employees.
Yeah, how about the Social Security numbers? Looking at the fact that we're paying Social Security to people that are over 300 years old.
Right. I'm not sure if you've ever met that person. I most certainly have not. My boss, on my checks, was 224 years old, was the oldest person that's ever lived. Look, it's not funny. It's serious because we want to know where this money was going. And the people that are upset, frankly, they don't want transparency. They're sitting there clutching their pearls saying, oh my God, what are they doing? Elon isn't appointed. He shouldn't be doing this. The president is, and the American people voted for this, but we want to put money back into American taxpayer dollars. We have a right to know how our money is spent, and if the federal government was irresponsible, this administration will correct that. Yeah, I mean, you don't think the whole resist movement was going to work this time around, given the president's, a huge win, the popular vote, and all the swing states, but they're still trying. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals is refusing to remove a block on President Trump's birthright citizenship ban. So you have a potential fight in front of the Supreme Court, Alina. Is that where this is going?
Yes, absolutely. I don't doubt that. And I think that when we did this, we knew it. And it's something that would be taken up to the Supreme Court.
That's not something, unfortunately, that we're not used to. President Trump, as you know, my face on TV all the time for the last 4 years, has been under this lawfare. It's their desperate attempt to use court systems and the judicial system to stop real action. And unfortunately, it's a game that is losing. They lost tremendously on November 5th because of it. I don't think they got the memo, to be honest, Maria, that the American people are just tired of it. They wanted change, they voted for change, and that's what we're going to give them.
And how about this congestion pricing fight? New York Governor Kathy Hochul is vowing to challenge the president's decision to end congestion pricing and halt approval for New York City's pricing program. Watch this.
We have a lot of legal reasons why we know we're going to be victorious, but here's what I want to also say. I don't care if you love congestion pricing or hate it. This is an attempt on our sovereign identity, our independence from Washington.
Alina, your response. Yeah, this is a great topic for me. My husband literally works in New York in parking, and I can tell you that congestion parking does not work. It does not drive economics in New York. It stops tourism. It stops government and mid-level employees, people that are making minimum wage, from being able to go to work during the day because they are being double taxed so that she can enrich herself. Governor Hochul should be the face of the resistance of the Democrat Party and why they lost. Governor Hochul, Kamala Harris, Letitia James, all of these people, frankly, after Chuck Schumer, have made a huge choice for the Republicans because they remind the American people why we voted for Trump. And that is because it makes no sense. Congestion pricing has slowed down New York. It has cost American people a lot of money, and nobody can explain why Hochul is so for congestion pricing. It is outrageous. That New York used to be one of the greatest cities in the country, and we will make it that way again. We will make it safe, and we will allow tourism. We will allow people to drive to work, not have to take unsafe subways, which, by the way, she should be focusing on, and doing the right things for constituents in that city. So her resistance is, frankly, more of, in my opinion, a PR move than anything realistic. Congestion pricing is wrong. It doesn't work. And Sean Duffy did a tremendous job by getting rid of it.
Well, I mean, Pam Bondi has launched an investigation into the sanctuary cities, and she'll probably find, like, where the money is going, and the money has gone, in many cases, to housing and caring for illegal migrants in the city. Isn't that right?
Yeah, 100% that's right. We're looking at also the IRS. The IRS is sending money, and we're looking at cutting that money that's being funded from American taxpayer dollars. Immigrants who came into this country the correct way are all taking their money and then giving them to illegal immigrants. It's no different than the $10,000 credit cards they got and the hotel rooms they got, mostly, frankly, in New York City, that we were funding. And look at what they did right before we got it. They sent over $40 million rushed into hotels to fund them. Right. So then you want to take our money, give them our hotels, make our cities less safe, and by the way, double tax you on congestion pricing. That is a disaster.
Well, I mean, initially it was all fine for Eric Adams, wasn't it? I mean, and now, he's on the other side. A federal judge is waiting to decide whether to dismiss the corruption charges against the New York City mayor, Eric Adams, who's accused of accepting more than $100,000 in illegal campaign contributions and luxury travel gifts from a Turkish official. He's pled not guilty and he's refusing to resign, but we don't know where Kathy Hochul is going to take this either, Alina.
Yeah, that's another problem. I mean, their own city, they're fighting, their own state, they're fighting like that. And you have to look at the track record. I leave these details to the DOJ that are looking at the cases. And without getting into Eric Adams' case, I can just say that as an American who's watched lawfare for the past 4 years and been a part of it, I find it strange that Eric Adams, who was anti-sanctuary city, anti-keeping of New York a cesspool, that he was hit hard really quickly the minute he prevented and pushed back on the Biden administration. Those types of things trigger me. So I'll let the details get hashed out with the courts, but on that one, it smells fishy.
Alina, great to see you this morning. Thanks so much.
Are you looking to scale your real estate portfolio? In